Canada's nasty. They are. They're nasty. People think Canada, they're nasty. People, I love the people, but they're nasty. Nasty leadership.
Whatever adjective is used, yes, we're standing up for Canadian workers, for Canadian businesses, as we always have from the start. And from the start, our focus has been on what we can control, and that's investing in protecting our jobs, investing in the future, and you see a great demonstration of that here, making carbon neutral aluminum, the first demonstration plant in the world in order to make carbon neutral aluminum. That's a partnership between Rio Tinto, another company, but the government of Quebec and the government of Canada, all working together seamlessly. I was making an analogy in terms of it's hard to distinguish between the firms that from the Saguenay, the electrical firms, the construction firms, other firms that are working seamlessly with the core team from Rio Tinto, and I think that's what we're seeing in this industry.
Canada stayed calm when Donald Trump tried to insult it, but the answer changed the whole story. Instead of fighting with angry words, Canada showed why this trade fight is hurting America more than anyone expected. Donald Trump called Canada nasty from a Las Vegas stage. A day later, a reporter put the word directly to Mark Carney, and the Canadian Prime Minister didn't flinch. He didn't insult Trump back. He fired back with a number. American aluminum prices have jumped 58% because of Trump's own tariffs. Carney turned a personal attack into a warning about who actually pays for this trade war. And the answer, increasingly, is American companies and American families. The exchange unfolded in August 2026, when Carney was pressed by reporters in the Quebec city of Saguenay about Trump's insult. He refused to take it personally. "This is a tough negotiation," Carney said in French. "You can say nasty, but this is a question of Canadian jobs. It's a question of the future of Canadian businesses. Rather than trade barbs," he redirected the entire exchange toward the substance, Canadian workers, Canadian industries, and the economic stakes that matter far more than any name Trump chose to call the country. Then came the line that shifted the pressure back onto Washington. Carney pointed out that existing U.S. tariffs on aluminum have contributed to a 58% increase in aluminum prices inside the United States. That's not a good situation for American companies, he said. That single statistic reframed the whole dispute. Trump's tariffs were sold as a way to punish Canada and protect American industry. Instead, they have driven up the cost of a critical input for American manufacturers by more than half, meaning the companies Trump claims to defend are the ones absorbing the damage. The price of the trade war is landing on American soil. The timing makes that warning especially sharp. Canada is one of the United States' largest trading partners, and the tariff escalation threatens to push prices higher at a moment when Americans are already frustrated with the cost of living ahead of the November 3rd midterm elections. Higher aluminum costs flow into everything, from cars to cans to construction. As American voters head toward the polls angry about prices, Trump's tariffs on his closest neighbor are actively contributing to the inflation. They are frustrated about a political vulnerability that Carney's 58% figure exposed directly. Carney made clear Canada remains engaged despite the insult. He described the talks as a fight to protect Canadian workers and businesses, and confirmed Canadian negotiators in Washington were having detailed discussions with their American counterparts about the review of the US-Mexico-Canada Trade Pact. "We are in the middle of a tariff war with the Americans," Carney said, but he laughed when asked about Trump's description of Canadian leadership. That composure was the point. A leader rattled by an insult reacts. A leader confident in his position laughs it off and returns to the substance. And if you want the real story behind how Canada is still holding its ground through tariffs, wars, and hard times, hit join below to join the membership for exclusive documentaries you won't see anywhere else about Canada's progress and rise through uncertainty. The two sides remain far apart, and the stakes are rising. Trump is threatening to impose additional tariffs on Canadian imports as soon as next week, unless Ottawa makes a number of concessions. Carney has been explicit that he wants an overall deal, not a partial one, refusing to accept a narrow agreement that resolves some irritants while leaving the core tariffs on steel, aluminum, autos, copper, and softwood lumber in place. That insistence on a comprehensive settlement is itself a form of leverage, signaling Canada will not be pressured into a piecemeal deal that lets Washington keep its most damaging measures. Canada's chief negotiators have been putting in the work behind the rhetoric. Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Canada's chief negotiator Janice Charette were in Washington for the second time in as many weeks. LeBlanc described the meetings on social media as constructive and detailed, a deliberately measured characterization that contrasts with Trump's public insults. While the president called Canada nasty from a casino stage, Canada's negotiating team was quietly advancing the substantive talks, keeping the process moving regardless of the noise coming from the podium. The personal friction between the two leaders has a long history that gives this exchange its edge. The tension traces back to Carney taking office in March 2025 and has flared repeatedly since. At the World Economic Forum in Davos in January, Carney criticized major powers for using economic coercion against smaller countries, prompting Trump to fire back, "Canada lives because of the United States." Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. Even in friendlier moments, the edge has remained during an October 2025 White House visit. Trump praised Carney as a world-class leader and a nice man who could also be very nasty. The word Trump used in Las Vegas was not new. It was a recurring theme. Carney's response fits a consistent pattern he has maintained throughout the conflict, refusing to be diminished while never matching Trump's tone. During his first White House visit as Prime Minister, when Trump riffed on annexing Canada as a 51st state, Carney told him, "There are some places that are never for sale," and silently mouthed the word never over and over as Trump spoke. When Trump halted trade talks over an Ontario ad featuring Ronald Reagan criticizing tariffs, Carney responded not with outrage, but by calmly stating Canada stood ready to resume constructive negotiations. The approach is unwavering: absorb the provocation, decline the personal fight, and keep the focus on Canada's interests. The wildfire dispute adds another layer to the current friction. The previous week, the Trump administration said it would hold Canada accountable for wildfire smoke that spread from Canada into more than a dozen American states, threatening to attach smoke-related costs to the tariff structure. That threat, layered on top of the 50% tariffs and the new tariffs threatened for next week, reflects the widening range of grievances Washington is using to justify pressure on Canada. Carney's steady posture across all of them, trade, smoke, insults, is designed to project a Canada that will not be knocked off balance by the volume or variety of American complaints. The deeper strategy behind Carney's restraint is that Canada has spent 18 months reducing its vulnerability to exactly this kind of pressure. He has worked to lessen Canada's diplomatic and economic dependency on the United States, signing trade deals with the UAE and Ecuador, launching a strategic exports office aimed at Asia and Europe, and pursuing energy agreements with Germany. When Carney says the negotiation is about Canadian jobs rather than personal insults, he is speaking from a position strengthened by that diversification. The more markets Canada builds elsewhere, the less any single American threat can dictate outcomes. The price the United States will pay is embedded in Carney's own framing. It is not retaliation in the form of counter-insults or dramatic gestures. It is the economic reality that tariffs on an integrated partner raise costs for the country imposing them. The 58% aluminum price increase is one measurable example. American homebuilders paying more for lumber, American farmers who forced a reversal on potash, American unions asking their own government to reconsider, and Las Vegas casinos emptied of Canadian tourists are others. Each represents a cost the tariffs impose on American interests rather than Canadian ones. The negotiations continue against a hard deadline, with Trump threatening fresh tariffs within the week and Carney holding firm for a comprehensive deal. The president calls Canada nasty. The Prime Minister points to American aluminum prices and Canadian jobs. And the fundamental dynamic Carney has worked to build over 18 months now shapes the entire exchange. A Canada confident enough to laugh off an insult, focused enough to redirect the conversation to who actually pays, and diversified enough that the threats no longer carry the weight Washington assumes they do.